I'm about to reveal the 12 productivity strategies that transformed my chaos into clarity in 2025, and they won't cost you a single penny. These aren't your typical time management tips. These are the exact methods backed by 2025 research showing AI automation saves professionals up to 60 minutes per day. The best part? Every single one of these hacks leverages technology and insights that most people still don't know exists. If you're tired of feeling overwhelmed and want to join the top 1% who seem to effortlessly get everything done, stick around because what I'm sharing next will transform your workflow starting this week. The first thing you need to understand is that speed matters more than you think. Master your digital speed. Here's a scenario that perfectly illustrates this principle. Two marketing managers with similar experience levels worked on identical client presentations. The first person finished in 22 minutes, while the second took over 2 hours to complete the exact same task. Both were competent professionals, but one operated with what I call digital velocity, while the other struggled through every click and keystroke. The difference wasn't intelligence or training. It was something most people never think about, and it's costing you hours every single day. The faster professional never touched their mouse during the entire session. They navigated everything through keyboard shortcuts, switched between applications instantly, and even formatted text without looking at menus. Meanwhile, the slower person clicked through every single menu, scrolled around looking for buttons, and typed responses that the first person generated with voice commands in seconds. This is digital velocity, and it's the single biggest productivity multiplier you can develop in 2025. Most professionals operate their computers like they're driving in first gear when fifth gear is available. Your cursor sensitivity right now is probably set to the default speed, which is designed for beginners, not power users. Go into your system settings and increase your mouse sensitivity to 2.5 times the normal speed. Yes, it will feel uncomfortable for the first few days, but your brain adapts quickly and you'll cut navigation time in half. The same principle applies to everything you do digitally. The software you use every day got major updates in 2025 with AI-powered shortcuts that can cut navigation time in half. Tools like Notion, Slack, and Gmail now have context-aware features that predict what you need before you ask for it. These aren't experimental features, they're production-ready tools that the fastest professionals already use daily. Voice-to-text technology crossed a major threshold in 2025, reaching 99.2% accuracy for standard speech patterns. This means speaking is now genuinely faster than typing for most people. The average person types 40 words per minute but speaks 150 words per minute. Enable voice input on your devices and start dictating emails, messages, and documents instead of typing them. Your phone, tablet, and computer all have native voice recognition that works offline, so there's no privacy concerns about cloud processing. Here's where most people stop, but the real productivity gains come from automation. Make.com and Zapier both launched natural language interfaces in 2025 that let you describe workflows in plain English instead of building complex integrations. You can literally say, "Automate my email processing," and the AI creates workflows that sort, prioritize, and even draft responses to common message types. Research shows AI-driven automation can reduce email handling time by up to 90 minutes daily. The setup process takes 15 minutes. Connect your email account to Make.com or Zapier, then describe your workflow like this: process my emails twice daily, identify high-priority messages from clients and team members, create summaries of low-priority emails, and draft responses for meeting requests and common questions. The AI builds the entire workflow automatically, and you can customize the priority rules based on your specific needs. Your brain will resist these changes because familiar workflows feel safer, even when they're inefficient. This resistance isn't logical, it's psychological. The discomfort you feel when using faster mouse settings or learning new shortcuts is temporary, but most people quit during this adjustment period. Push through the first week of awkwardness, because muscle memory develops quickly and the speed gains become permanent. Start with one change at a time instead of overhauling everything simultaneously. The compound effect of digital speed optimization is massive. When you save 30 seconds on tasks you do 50 times per day, that's 25 minutes of reclaimed time. Multiply that across all your digital interactions, and you're looking at hours of additional capacity. Research tracking professionals who implemented comprehensive digital speed training found they completed identical workloads in 40% less time without sacrificing quality. Voice commands work for more than just dictation. Your smartphone can set reminders, create calendar events, send messages, and launch applications faster than manual navigation. Instead of opening your calendar app, scrolling to the right date, and tapping to create an event, just say, "Schedule team meeting Thursday 2 p.m., conference room B." The entire process takes 3 seconds instead of 30 seconds, and the accuracy is perfect. Advanced users combine multiple speed techniques into workflows that seem impossible to outsiders. They dictate emails, while formatting documents, use keyboard shortcuts to switch between applications, and employ AI assistants to handle routine tasks simultaneously. This isn't about being busy, it's about achieving the same results with dramatically less effort and time investment. Here's your challenge for this week. Go to 10fastfingers.com and test your current typing speed. Then pick one digital speed improvement to implement immediately. Either increase your mouse sensitivity, learn 3 new keyboard shortcuts for your most used application, or set up basic email automation. Time yourself doing a routine task before and after the change, then multiply that time savings by how often you do that task monthly. The numbers will shock you. Digital speed creates capacity for work that actually matters. When routine tasks take half the time, you have twice as much energy for creative problem solving and strategic thinking. But here's what most people miss about productivity: the strategic elimination method. The secret isn't adding more to your day, but strategically removing the right things. Most people approach productivity backwards. They keep piling on systems, tools, and techniques when the real breakthrough comes from cutting out everything that doesn't matter. I discovered my own low-value tasks consumed 80% of my work week when I audited my time, and the results shocked me. The revelation hit me during a particularly brutal week where I worked 70 hours but accomplished almost nothing meaningful. I had attended 6 meetings that could have been emails, responded to dozens of non-urgent messages, reorganized my desk twice, and spent hours on tasks that felt important but moved nothing forward. Meanwhile, the one project that could have transformed my business sat untouched because I was too busy being busy. That's when I realized I wasn't managing my time, I was letting my time manage me. This phenomenon has a name: productivity debt, and it works exactly like financial debt. Each low-value task your brain defaults to creates a compounding drain that undermines your impactful work. When you spend 15 minutes on a meaningless task, you don't just lose those 15 minutes, you lose the momentum, focus, and mental clarity needed for important work afterward. These small time leaks add up to massive productivity drains that most people never recognize because they feel productive while doing them. The 2025 Workplace Analytics reveals something that should terrify every ambitious professional. Only 7% of daily activities drive 93% of career advancement. As Pareto's 80-20 rule shows, 20% of your tasks drive 80% of your results. But the updated data shows the concentration is even more extreme. This means that if you work 10 hours per day, roughly 42 minutes of that time actually moves your career forward, while the remaining 9 hours and 18 minutes keep you busy, but don't create meaningful progress. The gap between high performers and everyone else isn't talent or effort, it's the ability to identify and focus on that crucial 7%. Most people can't identify their time drains because they don't measure them systematically. Here's the energy audit method that reveals exactly where your time goes. Start with your smartphone screen time data, which shows precisely how many hours you spend on each app and website. Then export your calendar data for the past 90 days and categorize every meeting and appointment by impact level. Finally, track your energy levels throughout typical days, noting when you feel focused versus drained. This data combination reveals patterns that shock most people. The energy audit typically shows that people spend 3 to 4 hours daily on activities that provide zero career advancement. Social media browsing, low-priority emails, unnecessary meetings, and busy work consume massive amounts of time while generating no meaningful outcomes. Armed with this data, you can create what I call a never-again list, documenting every regrettable time investment from the past 90 days and committing to never repeat those mistakes. Your never-again list should include specific activities, not general categories. Instead of writing meetings, write status update meetings that cover information already available in project management tools. Instead of writing social media, write checking Instagram stories during work hours. The more specific your list, the easier it becomes to recognize these time traps when they appear in your schedule. Review this list weekly and add new items as you identify them. The psychological difficulty of saying no prevents most people from implementing strategic elimination effectively. Your brain interprets declining requests as social rejection, which triggers stress responses that make you want to agree to everything. The solution isn't willpower, it's having prepared scripts that allow you to decline gracefully while maintaining relationships. When someone asks for your time, try this response: I appreciate you thinking of me for this, but I'm not able to take this on right now, given my current commitments. This acknowledges their request, shows respect, and provides a clear boundary, without lengthy explanations or excuses. The delegation revolution happening in 2025 makes outsourcing accessible to professionals at every level, not just executives. AI assistants can handle email management, social media posting, data entry, and customer service interactions for less than minimum wage. Global remote talent platforms connect you with skilled professionals who can complete administrative work, creative projects, and technical tasks at rates that make delegation profitable even for individual contributors. Virtual assistants in countries with lower cost of living can handle tasks like calendar management, travel booking, research, and content creation for $5 to $15 per hour. When your time is worth $50 per hour for strategic work, but you're spending it on $10 per hour administrative tasks, you're literally losing money by not delegating. People who master strategic elimination report 60% less stress while achieving better results because they're no longer fighting against their own productivity systems. They spend their time on work that actually matters, which creates momentum and satisfaction that busy work never provides. The transformation isn't immediate, but the compound effects are massive when you consistently choose impact over activity. But elimination alone isn't enough. Once you've cleared the clutter from your schedule, you need something to drive consistent execution on what remains. Artificial urgency engineering. The most productive people in 2025 don't wait for real deadlines, they manufacture fake ones. And this counterintuitive approach is what separates high performers from everyone else. While most professionals procrastinate until external pressure forces them into action, the top 1% create their own time constraints weeks or months before anything is actually due. This isn't about being paranoid or overly cautious. It's about understanding that urgency is the most powerful focus enhancer available, and you don't need to wait for someone else to create it for you. Waiting for natural urgency creates a cascade of problems that most people never connect to their productivity struggles. When you rely on real deadlines, you're forcing yourself into reactive mode, where there's no time for creative iteration, quality improvements, or strategic thinking. The work becomes about meeting minimum requirements rather than exceeding expectations, and the stress of last-minute execution affects everyone around you, including teammates, clients, and family members who have to deal with your emergency mindset. This is where controlled pressure becomes your secret weapon. Instead of letting external circumstances dictate your stress levels, you deliberately create time constraints that enhance focus without creating chaos. Controlled pressure means setting personal deadlines that feel urgent enough to activate your brain's focus networks, but distant enough from real deadlines to allow for multiple rounds of improvement. The key difference between controlled pressure and panic is that you maintain choice and flexibility while still benefiting from urgency-driven focus. The buffer zone strategy transforms how you approach every project and commitment in your life. For every real deadline, set a personal deadline 2 to 3 weeks earlier and treat that fake deadline as if missing it would have serious consequences. This buffer period isn't meant for procrastination. It's designed for creative iteration, where you complete the work to your personal deadline, then use the remaining time to refine, improve, and perfect the output. Most breakthrough ideas and quality improvements happen during revision phases that only exist when you create artificial urgency early in the process. Time pressure activates your brain's focus networks, including the anterior cingulate cortex and prefrontal cortex, which control attention and executive function. When your brain perceives a deadline approaching, it automatically filters out distractions, increases processing speed, and prioritizes relevant information over background noise. This neurological response happens whether the deadline is real or artificial, which means you can trigger enhanced focus whenever you choose, rather than waiting for external circumstances to force it. The traditional Pomodoro technique gets a major upgrade in 2025 with AI integration that transforms simple time blocking into intelligent productivity sessions. Pomodoro 2.0 uses 45-minute deep work blocks instead of 25-minute sessions, because research shows that most people need 15 to 20 minutes to reach peak focus, and traditional Pomodoros end right when you're getting into flow state. Research shows our minds cycle every 90 minutes. Use that window for creative work. After each 45-minute work session, you take a 15-minute AI-assisted review, where artificial intelligence analyzes your output, suggests improvements, identifies gaps, and helps you prepare for the next work block. Calendar blocking becomes your primary tool for creating artificial urgency across multiple projects simultaneously. Block specific time slots for each project and treat those calendar appointments as seriously as you would treat meetings with your most important clients. Use different colors for different projects and include specific deliverables in each calendar block, so you know exactly what needs to be completed during that time. Most professionals who struggle with artificial urgency fail because they create vague commitments instead of specific time-bound tasks with clear outcomes. Public commitment apps like Beeminder or StickK allow you to create financial consequences for missing your artificial deadlines, which adds real stakes to fake urgency. You can commit to completing specific tasks by certain dates and lose money if you miss those self-imposed deadlines. The psychological impact of potential financial loss makes artificial deadlines feel as urgent as real ones, because your brain can't distinguish between different types of consequences. Start with small financial commitments like $20 and increase the stakes as you build confidence in your ability to meet self-imposed deadlines. The difference between productive pressure and destructive stress determines whether artificial urgency helps or hurts your performance. Productive pressure feels challenging but manageable, with clear next steps and reasonable timelines. Destructive stress feels overwhelming with unclear requirements and impossible deadlines that create anxiety instead of focus. Warning signs include sleep disruption, constant worry about deadlines, and inability to focus during work sessions. Professionals who implement artificial urgency systems complete projects 35% faster with higher quality outcomes because they're getting the benefits of deadline pressure without the costs of last-minute execution. They have time for multiple drafts, creative exploration, and thorough testing, while still maintaining the focus intensity that urgency provides. But even the best artificial urgency systems have one critical weakness. They depend entirely on your personal willpower to maintain momentum. Social accountability amplification. That's where social accountability becomes your productivity multiplier. Research shows that individuals are significantly more likely to achieve their goals when another person is counting on them. This isn't motivational fluff. This is hard science from 2025 research that tracked thousands of professionals across different industries and goal types. The data shows that social accountability creates a biological response in your brain that willpower alone cannot match. Your nervous system treats commitments to other people as survival-level priorities, while personal commitments get processed as optional suggestions that you can ignore without consequences. The failure rate of solo productivity efforts should terrify anyone serious about achieving their goals. According to 2025 analysis, solo productivity efforts fail 92% of the time, while collaborative commitments show significantly higher success rates over the same period. Most people blame their lack of discipline or motivation for these failures, but the real problem is that human beings evolved as social creatures who need external validation and pressure to maintain consistent behavior. Working alone removes the social dynamics that kept our ancestors alive and productive in tribal environments. I discovered this truth during my worst productivity period, when I spent 6 months trying to build a morning routine using every app book and system available. Despite buying expensive planners, setting phone alarms, and creating elaborate reward systems, I couldn't maintain the routine for more than 4 days straight. The breakthrough came when I mentioned my struggle to a colleague who was dealing with similar challenges. We decided to text each other photos of our morning workouts at 6 a.m. every day, and suddenly both of our consistency rates jumped to over 90%. The routine that seemed impossible alone became automatic when another person expected proof of completion. The 2025 accountability ecosystem has been reshaped by remote work, creating new avenues for finding commitment partners globally. This shift has made it easier to connect with like-minded individuals who share similar goals, regardless of location. Platforms like FocusMate provide virtual co-working sessions that boost focus, while BeMinder creates financial stakes through loss aversion psychology. These connections often become more reliable than local relationships because they're built specifically around shared objectives rather than social convenience. The most effective accountability systems use multiple layers that serve different psychological needs. Your progress witness is someone who checks in regularly to track your consistency and momentum without necessarily having deep knowledge of your field. This person provides the social pressure needed to maintain daily habits while offering encouragement during difficult periods. The key is finding someone who understands the importance of regular check-ins and can provide honest feedback about your progress patterns. Most accountability relationships fail because they become one-sided, where one person does all the supporting while the other just receives help. Structure your partnerships to be mutually beneficial by identifying what you can offer in return for the accountability you receive. If someone helps you stay consistent with your writing schedule, offer to review their marketing materials or provide feedback on their projects. When both people benefit from the relationship, the commitment level increases dramatically, because ending the partnership costs both parties something valuable. Approaching potential accountability partners requires specific scripts that make the request feel professional rather than needy. Try this opener. I'm working on improving my consistency with daily goal achievement, and I'm looking for someone who might want to do weekly check-ins where we both report our progress and problem-solve any obstacles. Would you be interested in a 15-minute call each Friday to discuss what we accomplished and what we're planning for the following week? This approach positions accountability as a mutual business arrangement rather than a favor request, which increases acceptance rates and sets professional expectations. Many professionals avoid accountability partnerships because they worry about appearing vulnerable or incompetent when they admit to struggling with basic productivity habits. The reality is that sharing struggles builds stronger professional relationships than pretending everything is perfect. When you're honest about your challenges, other people reciprocate with their own struggles, which creates mutual respect and genuine connection. The most successful business relationships often start with shared acknowledgement of common problems rather than impressive achievements. Vulnerability in professional settings demonstrates self-awareness and commitment to improvement, which are attractive qualities in colleagues and business partners. When you tell someone, I've been struggling to maintain consistency with my content creation schedule, and I'm looking for accountability, most people respond positively because they relate to similar challenges. This honesty creates opportunities for mutual support that polished networking conversations never achieve. Individuals with structured accountability systems achieve goals 65% more consistently than those working alone, according to 2025 studies. Your brain treats commitments to other people as contractual obligations that trigger shame and social anxiety when broken, while personal commitments feel optional and negotiable. This psychological difference explains why you can skip your own workout without stress, but feel terrible about canceling plans with a friend. The multiplier effect of accountability extends beyond the specific goals you're tracking together. When you know someone is counting on you to complete daily tasks, your overall discipline improves across all areas of life. The consistency you develop in one accountable relationship transfers to other projects and commitments because you're strengthening the neural pathways associated with follow-through and reliability. But here's what most people get wrong about sustained high performance. They think accountability and artificial urgency are enough to maintain peak productivity indefinitely. The truth is that even the most sophisticated accountability systems eventually break down if you ignore one critical strategic recovery architecture. That critical element is strategic recovery architecture. The highest performers in 2025 are obsessed with recovery, not just work. While everyone else is grinding 80-hour weeks and bragging about their hustle, the top 1% have figured out that strategic rest is what separates good from extraordinary. This isn't about being lazy or lacking drive. It's about understanding that your brain and body operate like high-performance engines that require maintenance to function at peak capacity. The hustle culture myth has it backwards. Constant work doesn't create success. It destroys the very capabilities that generate breakthrough results. The hidden cost of constant productivity is that overwork actually decreases your output and creativity in ways most people never recognize. When you push through fatigue and skip recovery periods, your cognitive function drops by up to 40%, even though you feel like you're being productive. Your brain starts making poor decisions, takes longer to process information, and loses the ability to make creative connections between ideas. This productivity debt accumulates over weeks and months until you're working twice as hard to achieve half the results you could generate with proper recovery protocols. I learned this lesson during a particularly intense project phase where I worked 16-hour days for 3 weeks straight, thinking I was maximizing my output. By week 4, my work quality had deteriorated so much that I spent more time fixing mistakes than creating new content. Simple tasks that normally took 30 minutes were taking 90 minutes, and I couldn't generate any innovative solutions to problems that would have been easy to solve when well rested. The breakthrough came when I took 2 full days off and immediately returned with clarity, energy, and creative ideas that had been impossible to access during the overwork period. Strategic downtime allows your subconscious mind to process information, make connections, and solve problems that your conscious mind struggles with during focused work periods. The most innovative ideas often emerge during walks, conversations, or quiet reflection, rather than during intense brainstorming sessions. Research shows that working in cycles of 90 to 120 minutes optimizes brain function, aligning with your body's natural ultradian rhythms. Your nervous system naturally alternates between periods of high alertness and recovery, approximately every 90 minutes throughout the day, affecting everything from reaction time to creative thinking to decision-making quality. Energy mapping reveals your personal patterns by tracking your natural high and low periods for 2 weeks. Note your energy levels, mood, and focus quality every hour from when you wake up until you go to bed. Most people discover they have 3 to 4 distinct energy peaks per day, with predictable low periods in between. Once you know your patterns, you can schedule demanding creative work during peaks and use low periods for administrative tasks or recovery activities. Most people waste their highest quality hours on low-value activities like email checking, while saving important work for periods when their brain is already fatigued. The difference between passive rest and active recovery determines whether your downtime actually restores your capabilities or just postpones fatigue. Passive rest includes activities like scrolling social media or watching television, which provide temporary distraction but don't actively restore your mental resources. Active recovery involves walking in nature, having meaningful conversations, reflecting on goals, or engaging in light physical activity that stimulates blood flow and promotes mental clarity. Active recovery doesn't just prevent burnout, it actively enhances your performance for subsequent work periods. The 10-minute reset routine becomes your most powerful tool for maintaining energy throughout long work days. Every 90 minutes, stand up from your workspace, walk around for 5 minutes focusing on your breathing, then spend 5 minutes doing light stretching or looking out a window at distant objects. This routine resets your nervous system, prevents the accumulation of physical tension, and gives your eyes a break from screen focus. Weekly digital detox periods protect your attention span from constant stimulation that degrades focus quality over time. Choose one 4-hour period each week to completely disconnect from all digital devices and use this time for activities that engage different parts of your brain. Monthly retreat days provide deeper restoration needed for long-term performance sustainability. Schedule one full day each month with no work responsibilities, social commitments, or structured activities. Use this time for reflection, goal evaluation, and engaging with ideas or hobbies that inspire you outside of work contexts. The productivity guilt that comes with rest represents one of the biggest obstacles to implementing strategic recovery. Reframe downtime as an investment in future performance rather than time away from productivity. Companies that mandate recovery time see 40% higher employee performance because well-rested employees maintain higher cognitive function, creativity, and decision-making quality over time. The paradox of strategic recovery is that professionals who schedule recovery time accomplish 25% more than those who work continuously. This isn't because they work more hours, it's because they work with higher quality attention and energy during their active periods. But strategic recovery is only half the equation. The other half involves optimizing when you do your most important work, and there's one timing strategy that separates the highest performers from everyone else. Dawn Advantage Optimization. That timing strategy is Dawn Advantage Optimization. Research from 2025 reveals that 73% of Fortune 500 CEOs wake up before 6 a.m., and there's hard neuroscience explaining why this isn't just coincidence or outdated business tradition. These executives didn't stumble into early rising because they're naturally morning people. They deliberately engineered their schedules around the most productive hours of the day because they understand something about brain chemistry that most professionals completely ignore. Your morning mind operates fundamentally differently than your afternoon or evening mind, and this difference determines whether you spend your day reacting to problems or proactively creating solutions. The first few hours after waking represent a unique neurological window where your brain chemistry creates optimal conditions for deep work and strategic thinking. During these morning hours, your cortisol levels peak naturally, which enhances focus and mental clarity, while your dopamine receptors remain sensitive to achievement and progress. This biological state doesn't last long. It typically diminishes after 3 to 4 hours as stress hormones fluctuate and external demands fragment your attention. Most people waste this prime cognitive real estate on email, checking social media, scrolling, or rushing through morning routines instead of leveraging it for their most important work. The 2025 research on chronotypes reveals that even natural night owls can benefit from earlier wake times when the transition is handled properly. Your chronotype represents your genetic predisposition towards certain sleep and wake patterns, but it's more flexible than most people realize. The key insight from recent studies is that chronotypes can be gradually shifted without disrupting sleep quality or energy levels when you use the right approach. Your body's circadian rhythm responds to consistent light exposure, meal timing, and sleep schedules, which means you can retrain your internal clock to align with earlier productivity windows. The gradual transition method eliminates the shock and resistance as most people to abandon early rising attempts within a few days. Instead of suddenly waking up 2 hours earlier and feeling miserable, start by moving your wake time just 15 minutes earlier each week. This incremental approach allows your body to adjust naturally without creating sleep debt or energy crashes that make early rising feel impossible. Your sleep schedule needs to shift backward simultaneously with your wake time to maintain adequate rest. If you're moving your wake time 15 minutes earlier each week, you also need to move your bedtime 15 minutes earlier to preserve your total sleep duration. Morning routine optimization becomes critical because the first 90 minutes after waking set the neurological tone for your entire day. So these initial 90 minutes determine whether you'll operate from a reactive stressed mindset or a proactive focused mindset for the following 12 to 14 hours. Use this time for activities that enhance rather than deplete your mental resources like light exercise, strategic planning, creative work, or skill development. Avoid activities that create stress or scatter your attention like news consumption, email processing, or rushing through complex decisions that require careful thought. The science behind morning creative work reveals why breakthrough ideas and innovative solutions emerge more easily during early hours. Your prefrontal cortex operates at peak efficiency when cortisol and focus networks align, which typically happens 1 to 3 hours after waking. This neurological state creates optimal conditions for connecting disparate ideas, solving complex problems, and generating original insights that feel impossible during fragmented afternoon periods. Writers, artists, entrepreneurs, and researchers consistently report that their best work happens during these morning focus windows when external distractions are minimal and internal focus is maximum. Most people sabotage their morning potential by immediately checking phones or diving into reactive tasks that fragment their attention before deep work becomes possible. Your brain needs uninterrupted time to move from sleep recovery mode into peak performance mode, and this transition requires protection from external stimulation. Create a morning routine that gradually increases cognitive demand, starting with light physical activity, then moving to strategic thinking, and finally tackling your most important creative or analytical work. The compound effect of morning productivity gains creates momentum that multiplies throughout your day. When you complete important work during your peak energy hours, you build confidence and clarity that carries into afternoon tasks. Early accomplishments create positive momentum that makes subsequent challenges feel more manageable, while late morning starts often create playing catch-up feelings that persist until evening. This psychological difference affects decision-making, energy levels, and overall satisfaction with daily progress. Early risers report 45% higher life satisfaction and 30% better goal achievement rates because they've aligned their most important work with their peak cognitive abilities. But here's where most people make their biggest mistake. Even with perfect timing and peak energy, they still struggle because they're working on the wrong things first. Priority momentum mastery. The solution lies in priority momentum mastery, which means identifying and attacking your most impactful work when your cognitive resources are at their peak. Most people's productivity fails not because they don't work hard, but because they work on the wrong things first. And this single mistake destroys more careers than lack of talent or effort ever could. The typical professional starts their day by clearing out easy tasks, answering simple emails, organizing their workspace, and handling routine administrative work, because these activities provide immediate satisfaction and a false sense of accomplishment. Meanwhile, their most important project sits untouched, waiting for that magical moment when they have perfect energy and unlimited time, which never actually comes. Starting with easy tasks creates a productivity trap that most people never recognize because it feels so logical and satisfying in the moment. You get dopamine hits from checking items off your list, your inbox shows fewer unread messages, and your workspace looks organized and professional. This false progress masks the reality that you're spending your peak cognitive hours on work that any reasonably competent person could handle during their lowest energy periods. Easy tasks don't require creativity, strategic thinking, or breakthrough insights, but they consume the exact mental resources that your important work desperately needs to succeed. The leading domino concept transforms how you approach your daily task list by identifying the one activity that makes everything else easier or completely unnecessary. Every productive day contains one task that, if completed first, creates momentum, simplifies other activities, and moves your most important goals forward significantly. This leading domino isn't always the most urgent item on your list, and it's rarely the easiest task to complete, but it's the activity that generates the biggest impact on everything else you need to accomplish. Finding your leading domino requires asking, which task, if completed perfectly, would make me feel most satisfied with today's progress regardless of what else gets done? The 2025 version of the Eisenhower Matrix gets enhanced with AI-powered priority scoring that removes the guesswork from task prioritization. Traditional matrix systems rely on your subjective judgment about what's important versus urgent, but AI tools can analyze your goals, calendar deadlines, and historical data to provide objective priority rankings. Apps like Motion and Reclaim AI now evaluate your task list against your stated objectives, upcoming deadlines, and energy patterns to suggest which activities deserve your peak hours and which can be scheduled for lower energy periods. The psychological resistance to hard tasks stems from your brain's threat detection system, which interprets challenging work as potential failure or embarrassment. Your nervous system can't distinguish between physical danger and professional challenges, so it creates the same avoidance responses for difficult projects that kept your ancestors safe from predators. This resistance manifests as procrastination perfectionism, or busy work that provides the illusion of progress while avoiding the discomfort of tackling genuinely challenging tasks. The solution isn't willpower or motivation, it's understanding that resistance is a normal biological response that decreases once you begin the work. Breaking through procrastination requires specific techniques that work with your psychology rather than against it. The 2-minute rule states that if a task takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately, rather than adding it to your list. But the inverse rule is more powerful for important work if a task will take more than 2 minutes. Start with just 2 minutes of work on it. This approach eliminates the overwhelming feeling that prevents you from starting while creating momentum that often carries you through to completion. Most procrastination stems from overestimating the difficulty of beginning rather than the difficulty of completing the work. The Power Hour framework dedicates your first 60 minutes of work time exclusively to your most important task, with 0 exceptions for email meetings or other distractions. During this hour, turn off all notifications, close unnecessary applications, and focus solely on making meaningful progress on your leading domino task. This isn't about completing the entire project in 1 hour. It's about ensuring that your peak cognitive resources get directed toward your highest value work before anything else can fragment your attention. Perfectionism destroys priority momentum by creating impossible standards that prevent completion and progress on important work. The pursuit of perfect outcomes on secondary tasks wastes time and energy that should be invested in good enough outcomes on primary tasks. Your goal isn't to produce perfect work on everything, it's to produce excellent work on what matters most and adequate work on everything else. This prioritization requires accepting that some tasks will be handled at 80% quality so that your most important work can receive 100% of your attention and effort. Completing important tasks first creates momentum multiplication, where early wins generate energy, enthusiasm, and confidence that carry through the rest of your day. When you tackle your hardest challenge during peak hours and make meaningful progress, you build psychological momentum that makes subsequent tasks feel easier and more manageable. People who consistently tackle their hardest task first report 50% higher goal completion rates because they've learned to use their biological rhythms and psychological patterns to support their most important work. But here's what most productivity experts won't tell you about timing your work. Biological rhythm synchronization. Your unique energy patterns determine optimal work timing far more than any generic schedule could ever achieve. Most productivity experts tell you to wake up at 5 a.m., work in 25-minute blocks, and tackle your hardest tasks first. But They're completely ignoring the biological reality that your body operates on individual rhythms that make these recommendations either brilliant or disastrous, depending on your personal chronobiology. Your nervous system cycles through predictable patterns of alertness, focus, creativity, and social energy throughout every 24-hour period. And fighting against these patterns is like trying to swim upstream while expecting to set speed records. I know someone who struggled with productivity for years following every mainstream time management system available, but nothing seemed to work consistently until they discovered something that changed everything. They tracked their energy levels for 2 weeks and realized they were trying to do creative work during their natural administrative hours and handling email during their peak creative periods. Once they flipped this arrangement and started writing during their 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. energy surge while processing emails during their 10 a.m. low period, their output doubled without working additional hours or using any new tools. The only change was timing, and it transformed their entire professional life. Chronobiology reveals how your body's natural rhythms affect mental performance throughout every day in ways that most people never consider when planning their schedules. Your circadian rhythm controls hormone production, neurotransmitter levels, body temperature, and cognitive function in predictable cycles that repeat every 24 hours. These biological fluctuations determine when you can think, most clearly solve complex problems, generate creative ideas, or engage effectively in social interactions. Understanding your personal chronotype, whether you're naturally inclined toward morning or evening activity, becomes the foundation for optimizing everything else you do professionally. The 2025 wearable technology revolution makes tracking your personal energy cycles easier and more accurate than ever before, with devices like the Oura Ring and Whoop Band providing detailed insights into your individual patterns. These devices monitor sleep quality, stress levels, heart rate variability, and activity patterns to identify your optimal performance windows throughout each day. The data reveals patterns that you might never notice consciously, like the fact that your creative thinking peaks at 3 p.m. or your analytical skills are strongest at 10 a.m. This information transforms from interesting data into actionable scheduling intelligence that can revolutionize your productivity. Most people think they only have one type of energy, but there are actually 4 distinct types that fluctuate independently throughout your day: physical, mental, creative, and social energy. Physical energy drives your ability to handle tasks requiring movement, coordination, or sustained activity. Mental energy powers analytical thinking, problem-solving, and detailed work that requires sustained concentration. Creative energy fuels innovation, brainstorming, artistic work, and connecting disparate ideas into new solutions. Social energy enables effective communication, collaboration, presentation skills, and relationship-building activities. Mapping your tasks to match these different energy types ensures you're always working with your natural capabilities rather than against them. The energy audit process requires tracking your natural highs and lows for 2 weeks to identify patterns that become the blueprint for your optimized schedule. Every 2 hours throughout your waking day, rate your physical, mental, creative, and social energy levels on a scale from 1 to 10. Note what types of activities you're doing during high energy periods and what drains your energy most quickly. Most people discover they have 3 to 4 distinct peaks per day, with different types of energy peaking at different times. This data becomes your personal productivity map, showing when to schedule different types of work for maximum effectiveness. Specific scheduling strategies transform this energy data into practical daily routines that maximize your natural capabilities. Work in 90-minute sprints followed by a 15-minute reset to align with ultradian cycles. Batching similar tasks during appropriate energy windows prevents the cognitive switching costs that drain mental resources. Protecting your peak hours means treating your highest energy periods like sacred time that only gets used for your most important work. Using low energy time strategically involves scheduling routine tasks, administrative work, and email processing during periods when you naturally feel less focused. The workplace revolution happening in 2025 shows companies adopting flexible scheduling based on employee rhythms with remarkable results. Organizations implementing flexible work timing see productivity increases of up to 35% because employees can align their most important work with their peak performance periods. These companies recognize that traditional 9-to-5 schedules often force people to work during their least effective hours while wasting their most productive periods on commuting or mandatory meetings. Professionals who align their work with their natural energy cycles report 40% less fatigue and achieve better results because they're working with their biology rather than fighting against it. This optimization eliminates the constant struggle of forcing productivity during low energy periods while maximizing the output from peak performance windows. But even perfect timing and energy optimization can't overcome one fundamental psychological barrier: consequence-driven motivation. That barrier is the psychological wiring that makes humans avoid pain more strongly than they seek pleasure. And this isn't some motivational theory, it's hard neuroscience that explains why most people fail at achieving what they want. Your brain processes potential losses with twice the emotional intensity of equivalent gains, which means the fear of losing something you have is more powerful than the excitement of gaining something new. Most productivity advice ignores this fundamental aspect of human psychology and tries to motivate you with rewards and positive outcomes when your nervous system responds much more strongly to avoiding negative consequences. This is where strategic stakes become your secret weapon for guaranteeing success, by artificially raising the cost of failure until avoiding that cost becomes more important than the comfort of staying where you are. Strategic stakes work because they transform abstract goals into concrete losses that your brain treats as immediate threats to your well-being. When you create meaningful consequences for not achieving your goals, you're essentially hacking your own psychology to make success feel like survival rather than optional improvement. I learned this lesson during my most challenging productivity period when I spent months trying to establish a consistent content creation schedule using every motivation technique available, but nothing worked for more than a few days. The breakthrough came when I publicly announced on social media that I would create daily content for 30 days, and if I missed a single day, I would donate $500 to a political organization I strongly opposed. The fear of funding causes I disagreed with was more powerful than any reward system I had ever tried, and I completed all 30 days without missing once. That public commitment with embarrassing consequences achieved what months of positive motivation couldn't accomplish. The 2025 digital ecosystem offers unprecedented tools for creating meaningful consequences that make your goals feel unavoidable rather than optional. Apps like Stick allow you to create commitment contracts where you define specific goals, set financial penalties, and choose referees who verify your progress. If you fail to meet your commitments, the money automatically goes to charities or causes you oppose. Beeminder takes a data tracking approach where you commit to specific metrics and pay increasing amounts when you deviate from your targets. These platforms leverage loss aversion by making the consequences of failure immediate, tangible, and personally meaningful. The most effective consequence systems use stakes escalation, where you start with small penalties and gradually increase them to maintain motivation as you build momentum. Begin with consequences that feel uncomfortable but not devastating, like $25 donations for missed daily goals, then increase to $50 for weekly goals and $100 for monthly objectives. This progressive approach prevents your brain from adapting to the stakes while ensuring the consequences remain motivating without becoming paralyzing. Loss aversion works because your brain evolved to prioritize survival over growth, and avoiding losses feels more urgent than achieving gains at a neurological level. When you frame goals in terms of potential losses, your nervous system activates the same threat detection systems that kept your ancestors alive in dangerous environments. This biological response bypasses the rational part of your brain that makes excuses and justifies procrastination, because threat avoidance operates at a deeper, more primitive level than logical decision-making. Specific examples of strategic consequences include donating to political candidates you oppose making public social media commitments that would be embarrassing to break, or setting financial penalties that go to people or causes you don't support. The key is choosing consequences that feel personally meaningful rather than generically unpleasant. If you care deeply about environmental issues, commit to donating to fossil fuel companies if you miss your goals. If you value your professional reputation, make public commitments that would damage your credibility if broken. The balance between helpful pressure and harmful stress determines whether consequences drive performance or create paralysis. Helpful pressure feels challenging but manageable, with clear next steps and reasonable timelines, while harmful stress creates anxiety, insomnia, and feelings of being overwhelmed. If consequences make you avoid starting tasks rather than motivating completion, you need to reduce the stakes or extend the deadlines. The goal is creating urgency that enhances focus, not fear that prevents action. People who create meaningful consequences for their goals are 85% more likely to achieve them, because loss aversion is approximately twice as powerful as gain attraction in human decision-making. Your brain treats potential losses as more urgent and important than equivalent gains, which explains why fear of failure often motivates more consistent action than hope for success. Strategic consequences work because they transform optional goals into mandatory actions by making failure feel unacceptable rather than disappointing. But consequences alone only tell half the story of sustainable motivation. The other half involves creating positive reinforcement that works alongside your fear of failure to build an unstoppable drive system. Reward system engineering. Combining consequences with rewards creates an unstoppable drive system that multiplies your motivation beyond what either approach achieves alone. While consequences prevent you from quitting, rewards pull you forward toward your goals. And this combination addresses both sides of human psychology, the avoidance of pain and the pursuit of pleasure. Most people rely on one approach or the other, but the real breakthrough happens when you engineer both systems to work together, creating motivation that feels automatic rather than forced. This dual approach transforms difficult goals from things you have to do into things you want to do, because the entire experience becomes rewarding rather than just the end result. Designing a personal reward system requires understanding the difference between rewards that actually motivate versus rewards that just feel good in the moment. Many people create reward systems that fail because they choose incentives based on what sounds nice rather than what drives behavior change. Effective rewards must be meaningful enough to influence your decisions, valuable enough to make effort feel worthwhile, and timed properly to reinforce the behaviors you want to repeat. The goal isn't just to celebrate success, it's to program your brain to crave the work that leads to success by associating productive activities with genuine pleasure and satisfaction. I know someone who used strategic rewards to complete a massive business project that had been stalled for months. Instead of trying to motivate themselves with the distant promise of project completion, they created weekly reward milestones that made the entire process enjoyable. Week 1 completion earned them a massage, Week 2 got them tickets to a concert they wanted to attend, and Week 3 unlocked a weekend camping trip they'd been postponing. Each reward was meaningful enough to drive effort, but also immediate enough to maintain momentum. The project that had seemed impossible for months got completed in 6 weeks, because every stage offered something to look forward to, rather than just more work. Anticipating rewards triggers motivational dopamine surges before you even begin working, which means the timing of rewards matters more than the size, because dopamine spikes happen before you receive the reward, not after. When you consistently pair productive work with anticipated rewards, your brain starts releasing dopamine when you begin working rather than when you finish. This neurological shift transforms work from something that drains energy into something that generates excitement and motivation. Reward scaling ensures your incentive system remains effective long-term by matching reward size to goal difficulty and personal values. Small daily accomplishments might earn you a favorite coffee or 30 minutes of leisure activity, while weekly goals could unlock larger rewards like dinner at a restaurant you enjoy or purchasing something you've been wanting. Monthly achievements deserve significant rewards that align with your personal interests and values, such as weekend trips, new equipment for hobbies, or experiences you wouldn't normally justify. The key is creating a hierarchy where bigger efforts earn proportionally bigger rewards, so your motivation system doesn't become stale or ineffective over time. Most reward systems fail because people choose instant gratification rewards that provide temporary pleasure but don't create lasting motivation to continue working toward long-term goals. Instant gratification rewards, like checking social media, eating junk food, or making impulse purchases, actually work against your productivity goals by training your brain to seek immediate satisfaction rather than delayed achievement. Meaningful milestone celebrations create positive associations with sustained effort and delayed gratification, which are the exact behaviors you need to maintain for significant accomplishments. Social reward strategies leverage your natural desire to contribute to others by creating rewards that benefit people beyond yourself. When you achieve goals, you can reward yourself by donating to causes you care about, buying gifts for family members, or organizing experiences that include friends and colleagues. This approach increases accountability because other people become invested in your success, while also making your achievements feel more meaningful and connected to your values. Social rewards also create positive feedback loops where your success generates goodwill and support from others, which motivates continued effort on future goals. The compound motivation effect shows how rewards for small wins build momentum that makes bigger achievements feel inevitable rather than impossible. Each small success creates confidence and positive energy that carries forward to the next challenge. When you celebrate completing daily tasks, weekly goals feel more achievable, and when weekly goals become routine, monthly objectives feel manageable. This upward spiral of achievement and recognition creates self-reinforcing motivation that becomes less dependent on external rewards over time because success itself becomes rewarding. People who engineer proper reward systems maintain motivation 70% longer than those relying on willpower alone because they've created sustainable psychological frameworks that support long-term effort rather than short-term bursts of determination. These systems work because they address human psychology realistically, instead of trying to force behavior change through discipline and mental strength that inevitably deteriorate under stress and fatigue. But even the most sophisticated motivation systems collapse without one fundamental element that separates successful people from everyone else: their relationship with time itself. Calendar integrity mastery. That element is calendar integrity mastery, which transforms how you approach every hour of your day. Studies link optimized scheduling to higher professional outcomes, and the wealthiest professionals I know treat their calendars like financial portfolios, carefully allocating every hour to activities that generate maximum return on investment, while most people let their schedules happen to them instead of designing them strategically. Your calendar reveals your true priorities regardless of what you claim matters most. And when you audit how successful people actually spend their time versus how average performers spend theirs, the differences are shocking and predictable. The chaos of reactive scheduling destroys more careers than any single factor because it puts you in constant response mode where urgent tasks crowd out important work and other people's priorities override your own goals. Most professionals operate like human pinballs, bouncing between whatever demand feels most pressing without considering whether those demands actually advance their objectives. They check email first thing in the morning, which immediately puts them in reactive mode, spend their peak energy hours in meetings that could have been emails, and save their most important work for whatever time remains after everyone else's needs get met. This backwards approach guarantees mediocre results because you're giving your best resources to other people's agendas, while your own goals get leftover scraps. I know someone who transformed their entire life by making one simple decision to treat their calendar like a sacred contract with themselves, where every commitment mattered as much as a legal agreement with their most important client. They stopped saying yes to requests without checking their schedule, first started blocking time for their personal priorities before anyone else could claim those hours, and began treating missed appointments with themselves as seriously as they would treat missing meetings with customers. Within 6 months, their income doubled because they were finally dedicating prime hours to revenue-generating activities instead of letting those hours get consumed by other people's emergencies and requests. AI-driven calendar assistants like Motion now auto-optimize your blocks based on energy data, analyzing your goals, energy patterns, and historical productivity data to suggest optimal time allocation automatically. These tools learn when you're most focused, creative, and energetic, then schedule your most important tasks during those peak periods while relegating routine work to naturally low-energy hours. These systems also protect your deep work time by automatically declining meeting requests that conflict with blocked focus sessions and suggest alternative times that work better for everyone involved. The AI doesn't just manage your schedule, it optimizes your entire day for maximum effectiveness based on your personal patterns and priorities. Time blocking has evolved beyond basic scheduling into energy-based and outcome-focused planning that considers not just when you'll work, but what type of energy each task requires and what specific outcome you need to achieve. Traditional time blocking just assigns tasks to time slots, but advanced practitioners now match high-energy periods with high-impact work, creative tasks with peak creative hours, and routine work with naturally low periods. They also set specific measurable outcomes for each time block. So instead of scheduling 2 hours for project work, they schedule 2 hours to complete the first draft of Section 3, which creates accountability and prevents time from expanding to fill available space. Use shorter self-imposed deadlines to leverage Parkinson's law, which states that work expands to fill the time allocated to it. And this principle becomes even more critical in 2025 remote work environments where distractions are everywhere and accountability is reduced. When you give yourself 4 hours to complete a task that could be done in 2 hours, you'll unconsciously slow down, add unnecessary steps, and find ways to fill the extra time even though you could have achieved the same result faster. Strategic use of Parkinson's law means deliberately setting shorter deadlines for tasks, creating artificial urgency that forces efficiency and prevents perfectionist tendencies from consuming excessive time. The calendar audit method requires analyzing how your actual time allocation aligns with your stated priorities and goals over the past month to identify gaps between intentions and actions. Export your calendar data. Categorize every appointment and meeting by its impact on your primary objectives. Then calculate what percentage of your time actually supports your most important goals. Most people discover they spend less than 30% of their working hours on activities that directly advance their careers, while the remaining 70% gets consumed by maintenance tasks, other people's priorities, and low-value busy work. This audit reveals where your time leaks are happening and provides concrete data for making better scheduling decisions. The psychology of calendar resistance explains why people avoid planning their time even though they know planning would improve their results. Your brain interprets scheduled activities as constraints on your freedom, which triggers unconscious rebellion against your own plans. Many people prefer the illusion of flexibility that comes from unstructured time, even though this flexibility usually results in wasted hours and poor prioritization. Understanding this psychological resistance helps you design calendar systems that feel supportive rather than restrictive. The momentum principle reveals how keeping small commitments to yourself builds the discipline needed for bigger achievements, because self-trust develops through consistent follow-through on minor promises. When you schedule 30 minutes for a specific task and actually use that time as planned, you're strengthening the psychological muscle that enables you to honor larger commitments later. Each kept appointment with yourself increases your confidence in your ability to follow through, while each broken commitment erodes your self-trust and makes future planning feel pointless. Professionals who honor their calendars report 55% higher goal achievement and lower stress because they've eliminated the constant decision fatigue that comes from figuring out what to work on moment by moment throughout each day. When your schedule is predetermined, you can focus entirely on execution rather than planning, which creates more consistent progress toward meaningful objectives. But even the most perfectly planned calendar becomes worthless when constant interruptions fragment your attention and destroy your ability to execute.